Uterine fibroids are non-cancerous growths in the uterus. It is common but rather unexposed condition that an estimated 70 to 80% of women deal with by the age of 50. However, compared to racial groups, Black women are 80 to 90% more likely to develop uterine fibroids. Black women also tend to experience fibroids at a younger age. Well, there's a fibroid summit coming up that will address that issue and more. Joining us now is nutritionist and founder of the detoxnow.com, Coach Gessie Thompson. Gessie, glad to have you on the show. So we had a woman on the other day who created her own feminine hygiene products company, and she said because of her experience with fibroids, and she felt that the chemicals that were being used in the products were having a negative impact on her and other Black women. For the folks out there, I mean, how significant is this for Black women? And is there an understanding of really what causes fibroids?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much for having me on and supporting us and telling our story, as you always do, Roland. And I specifically, personally, greatly appreciate you always providing an opportunity for me to share my own work. So first of all, Fibroids Awareness Month is July, so we're all talking about it right now, but it disproportionately affects Black women. The issue related to the commercial feminine products that was spoken about earlier this week is very spot on. It is one of the contributors, the specific when it comes to the dyes, the chemicals that are found in these commercial name brand feminine products is a contributor to heavy bleeding. And again, the toxicity in those products, those chemicals, it actually stimulates heavier bleeding, all right? But when we look at, because you did a great job talking about what they are, but the root cause that we often are left asking why, because doctors always say, well, we don't know why. We don't know what the cause is, but we know based on research that is actually prevalent out there that the root cause of fibroids is estrogen dominance, which is triggered by stress, diet, and pollutants. And the key thing here is not just that it's triggered by stress, diet, and pollutants in women at large, because you talked about those stats, Roland. You said 70% of women at large, but then it goes up to 90% when you look at Black women. This is why I'm actually doing my Share the Mic Now Fibroid Summit this week and next with influencers such as activist and Love and Hip Hop star Yandy Smith, Angela Yee from The Breakfast Club, and tomorrow I'm actually taking over Ricky Lake's IG page all day long to raise awareness about fibroids and provide keen insights on the disease. The details, specifically, it boils down to the stress, the specific issue that causes why we are disproportionately affected by it is related to the stress and specifically the trauma of racism. Roland, when I look at, we've been doing this for about 5 years now. We came on your show and we had a testimonial with us, and she talked about how she eliminated fibroids and cysts on our program. And it was because she was doing an estrogen-free diet. She was doing herbal supplements, et cetera, that are all part of her elimination reproductive system. But the key thing that we've been finding in our patient profiles over and over, Roland, is women suffering with undue stress. And when it comes to why, the profile says, A, they're overachievers, they crave validation, they feel the need to be superwomen, they are incapable of saying no, have control issues, all because the world around us, Roland, is telling Black women that we are not enough through the lack of representation, the overt racism, the microaggressions that we experience daily, and we have the pressure, we carry the pressure to disprove them. And as we have seen, we have one of our clients who eliminated 50 fibroids on her elimination program, 50 fibroids, MRI documented. And the key distinguishing factor was the stress reduction, specifically in her life, trauma healing in her life. Her whole story, it's on our website at thedetoxnow.com, and she tells it even herself. And she shows her MRI reports. And even recently, another woman just during quarantine, she eliminated a 7+ centimeter fibroid literally in about 5 weeks. So we know that when the stress factor is addressed, that it is something that we see the difference in terms of the acceleration of the reversal. And we also see the acceleration of the symptoms, like you said, the heavy bleeding, the anemia that can lead to heart failure, blood clots that come from, again, restriction from the larger fibroids, restriction of arteries from the larger fibroids that Black women tend to statistically, experience at more frequently. It's all the same linkage.
Questions. Let's start with Kelly. Kelly, question for Gessie Thompson.
Hi.
Hi, Kelly.
I'm hi. I am totally in agreement with you that a large reason that us Black women frequently have fibroids is because of stress. But also the reason we are stressed out is because of systems that are not in place for us. They look like it, but they're not necessarily. So speaking from experience of having to be independent, yet wanting to be dependent, in many regards, how do you reconcile that? And any tips that you have regarding self-care in the event that you cannot reconcile the need to depend on someone?
Very good point. These are the things that we deal with in our coaching sessions. Okay. So key things is understanding what you can control and what you can't. What kind of community and support systems you can basically align around you. And self-care tips, everything from number one is eliminating toxic relationships, eliminating too much. There's this pressure of us to say yes and not to be able to say no when we need to. And what I like to say is saying no may make you feel bad, but it doesn't make me, it may make you feel sad, but it doesn't make me bad. Because again, we're looking for that validation. So one of the key things that we equip women with in our program is being comfortable with saying no, because no is a complete sentence, right? When a woman craves validation,
saying no. It's a wonderful feeling.
That's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing, right? But there are too many of us who are not comfortable saying no, because there's that fear of lacking that validation, lacking that approval.
Got it.
And when it comes to self-care tips, there are things like, number one, making sure every day you're spending time doing things that only make, only what I say, that only increase your joy, right? That's a very important part to, and deep breathing and meditation and prayer. But focusing time to slow your life down, slow down, create breathing room between the events in your life so that you can recover. Shutting down specifically social media at certain times, giving yourself fast from these things, all allow you to recover.
Amisha?
Well, first off, I wanted to thank you, Roland, for opening the conversation, and thank your guests as well. As someone who found out I had fibroids just last year at 31, I had 8 fibroids, and one of them was the size of a 3rd trimester pregnancy. I was rushed to the hospital to go through a lot of invasive treatments to make sure that it would stop growing. So I understand the connection that you're having here, because I went through several specialists before anything was done. And as someone who is otherwise healthy, does not have any types of, other issues with weight or anything like that, or blood pressure or anything, the side effects of fibroids are extremely excruciating and problematic. And I think that for me, I was lucky in many ways because I have good health insurance, but a lot of African-American women do not. And when we talk about the level of specialists, the level of care, and the costs associated with it, even with my health insurance, I came off owing close to $12,000 after my insurance paid for, the part that it paid for. So I do want to also talk to you about, I know that people talk about natural remedies and things like that. Doctors typically don't recommend those because fibroids have a habit of coming back even after they're treated. So what is your, what would you tell women who can't reduce their stress? Because I think that's an easy thing to say in terms of self-care, but if every day you are a single mom, you are the main caregiver in your household, the rent is due in a few weeks, there is no way to really relieve that type of stress when everything falls on you. What do you have to say to those women and those who may have fibroids but don't necessarily have the treatment options available to someone who has greater access to healthcare?
Lots of great points you brought up there. First, I would start by saying there's always something you can do to take better care of yourself, because guess what? When you remove them surgically, they come back. I had 5 fibroid surgeries, 5 surgeries for complications from those fibroid surgeries, specifically because it was never dealt with at the root cause. So where there's myomectomies, and here's the deal, doctors with specifically are quick to cut on Black women, and we are the highest recipients of hysterectomies, because they're looking to, number one, just take our uterus, okay? And I think there's a lot connection there around just neutering us. But specifically, when you look at, so there's the health inequity gap, women who don't have good health insurance. Then there's also the issue we have when we do face our doctors, who are giving us, specifically, who are not believing us, who are not listening to us, and who are telling us, oh, if it doesn't bother you, don't bother it. Okay, so there's that, and the stress that causes. So no matter what we do, we're gonna have to find ways to deal with the stress, because at the end of the day, we have to control the stress. The diet, that's the other thing we can do, is change our diet. There are things that we can do. It's incremental, even if necessary. We have a detox living free food list that everybody can download right at thedetoxnow.com, specifically to learn what foods can I substitute, because a lot of what we deal with in terms of the fibroids is they are fed by estrogenic foods. They're fed by the stress. That's what makes it disproportionate in terms of our response. But in terms of what causes them, the estrogenic foods are very high, as well as the chemical pollutants. You can switch out those kind of things, and those kind of resources are available, like Roland was saying earlier about the toxic feminine care. There's so many brands that are available now. I'm actually going to be talking with Yandy Smith in our session coming up Friday about a partnership we're having around a brand that she helped co-launch, called Yanitox, okay? Again, it's about finding what kind of incremental changes we can make to take better care of ourselves. And if we don't learn how to deal with the stress, it's not that stress is not there. It is tips that we can use to better process the stress. Breathing and taking time to breathe specifically. Breathing is a huge piece. Mindfulness is a huge piece. I can access peace by virtue of deep breathing, and in a way that it doesn't matter what's going on around me, I can still access this. So it's not a matter of eliminating your stressors. There is stuff you can do in reducing your stressors by being more mindful of your relationships, being more mindful of everything we take on, because I'm going to tell you, most of what we have on our plate, don't get me wrong, I know that we're carrying a lot, but there are a lot of things that if we would reevaluate them, we're doing them because it's someone else wants us to do it, not because it's something that we have to do. And I know this because I see these women every day. This is the client I'm dealing with every day. She's the one who's carrying all these same issues. But guess what? As we work together to implement ways of, it starts off with the mindset, shifting the mindset and saying that self-care has to be a part of, I have to be radical about my self-love and self-care. That shift helps me deal with what's on my plate even better.
Mustafa.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I've had a number of members in my family who have suffered from this. And thank you also for raising the issues around nutrition, because in our communities we deal with food desert issues and can't access healthy food. And then also on the environmental side, huge impacts that happen inside of our bodies because of that. My question would be, for all the folks who are watching, are there policy recommendations that we should be getting behind to help to make sure that we're, utilizing that as a way of supporting and building a foundation underneath of the work that you're doing?
Great question. I love that. So, on our IG Live yesterday, the first one in the summit, I was talking to neuroscientist Dr. Caroline Leaf, and we talked about how 7% of the diseases, 7%, of the diseases are born from genetic reasons, right? So 93% actually comes from things, lifestyle determinants are what they call them, that we can change. They're called social determinants. And guess what's at the top of that list, Mustafa? Nutrition, food insecurity, like you talked about. So there are policies that people are trying to put in place, such as nutrition prescriptions, using food prescriptions for organic foods, like ways that we can use food as medicine in our healthcare system. Okay, there are policies for that on the table. There are also policies for having nutritional coaching support. Preventive care really has been centered around, what do you call pap smears, mammograms, of course your annual visits. But it really hasn't been around the things that can help prevent inflammatory conditions that disproportionately affect us as Black people, such as learning about nutrition and then access to food in our communities, better foods in our communities. So those are the kind of things we need to get behind. I know that they're piloting programs right now where doctors will actually prescribe food, actual food, as their prescription, and using that, piloting that to see how it can turn around and become something that can be incorporated in the healthcare system.
All right. Again, where can people get more information on this summit?
At thedetoxnow.com and specifically on my IG page, because all happening via IG Lives, Coach Gessie. Thank you so much, Roland, and of course the panel.
All right, then. I certainly appreciate it, Gessie. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.